For the European Commission claim a proposed deal between the U.S. and the EU allowing America to store the personal data of millions of transatlantic passengers is illegal. That's according to a report in the UK's Guardian newspaper. The U.S. wants access to credit card details, phone numbers and home addresses of European passengers as part of its anti-terror measures. Well, to talk more on this deal, we're now joined live from Brussels by Gerard Batten, who's a member of the European Parliament for the UK Independence Party. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The European Commission lawyers say the agreement is illegal. What do you think?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer on that point, but it certainly seems to me to be disproportionate and intrusive in the amount of information that they actually want on travellers. And it could well be illegal, especially under existing data protection legislation, and I've queried that before when speaking on this subject in the Parliament. They want an enormous amount of information about people, their personal details, credit cards, travelling companions even, but bizarrely, they say that they won't categorise information in terms of political, philosophical or religious belief. And it would seem to me the one criteria that would help you define terrorists who might be planning to blow up an aeroplane or an airport would be on the basis of their political, religious or philosophical beliefs. So that seems rather odd to me.
Now, I understand under this agreement the U.S. would get to keep the data of EU citizens for 15 years, but yeah. What does the EU get out of this? Is the U.S. prepared, do you think, to offer the same kind of information?
Well, this is always the question. Everything with the US seems to be a one-way street. It is in the same with our extradition treaty with the US and the UK. They can take our citizens very easily, but we can't do the same thing against them. They're protected by their own courts. In terms of this information, the Americans get to keep it for 15 years. My understanding of this directive is that the member states will only get it to keep it for 5 years. And I think it's bad enough having your own big brother state created in the European Union without being subjugated to an American big brother state as well by the same method.
How effective do you think this agreement will be in fighting terrorism and illegal immigration?
Well, we're always told that these things are done to protect us from, terrorism and organised crime. Well, if that's and we all want to be protected from that, of course we do, and we have to have proportionate laws in order to do that. But I think these things should be reached by international agreement so that everybody cooperates. Truly cooperates rather than is forced to do it, that we all agree through our democratic governments. What my party doesn't want is another EU directive because we don't believe in the EU. We don't believe in the EU legislation has any legitimacy anyway because it's not democratic. And of course all this is being negotiated with the US, Australia and Canada by Commissioner Malmström. Our own government won't know what comes out of the legislative sausage machine until we actually get to vote on it here. So it's one of the many other areas of policy where the British government no longer has any influence or say over what happens.
Some say that the deal could threaten the liberties of ordinary people, and of course that's understandable as we're looking at the deal. But what do you think that passenger data could be used for?
Well, the problem with all this data, and this is going to be very extensive, it's going to be, as we said earlier, names, addresses, credit card details, who you were travelling with. We know that this information is never secure because the British government has lost, we've had farcical examples in the UK where people have left vast amounts of information on laptops and on CDs in the backs of taxis and it's gone missing. It's gone missing in the post. Information is hacked into and stolen. We know it's not secure. It never is. So whatever they say about that, we know we can't rely on that. So I think if you're going to collect information, it should only be where necessary, and there should be very stringent safeguards for actually protecting it and severe penalties on those who leak it or steal it. But as I say, this should be done by international agreements by countries around the world because we're all in the same boat regarding terrorism and organised crime. So we should all be cooperating together. And I'm not in favour of the EU doing this on its own, as part of its own legislative machine, and the USA getting a special deal, which the rest of us don't get.
But people, use their credit cards all the time over the internet, and there's lots of private information available there. Isn't it better to give out that information and feel protected?
Well, of course, everybody's very vulnerable on this. We all pay for things over the internet with credit cards, and people can get into severe difficulties with the law when they find out their credit card details have been taken by criminals and used for something else. This is why I say it has to be very carefully regulated, and we have to be protected. We know we have to be protected, but the question is, Is a lot of this stuff being done in the name of preventing terrorism and organised crime in order for governments, and the EU considers itself to be a government, whatever it might say, in order to have more information and control over its citizens? I think the citizens have to be very resistant to the development of the big brother state, whether it be in the EU or the US or Russia or anywhere else.
All right, Gerard Batten, member of the European Parliament for the UK Independence Party. Thanks for that.